Log on to kcbzradio.com and check the schedule for Situation and Circumstance Live, complete with music, live phone call access, and additional audio and programming. Anthony and TBT would love for you to be a part of the live broadcast and recording of Situation and Circumstance at kcbzradio.com.
Situation and circumstance. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. Can we see each other with only a glance? Situations and circumstances. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. How can we see each other with only a glance?
Cake mix and race mixes, matrix, kill the witches, 3 digits, made of 6s, KKK or white.
Once again, we're here at KCBZ Radio. That's kcbzradio.com, and I am Mr. Classiq, and this is Situation and Circumstances. We sit in front of that sweet spot of perpetual metamorphosis layered with perspective. All over the world, there is a situation and circumstance. And, of course, I'm here with the TBT, the beautiful team that I have with me. Go ahead and say hello to the people, y'all.
Hello.
What up?
Yeah, tell them who the hell you are.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Mariah Leybah.
Yeah.
I'm Julius.
Yes, and
who are you?
I am Mr. Classiq.
Mr. Classiq.
Yeah, Mr. Classiq. I'm Mr. Classiq today. I might be Anthony Jackson another day. Hell, we just gonna go with it. Anthony Jackson, Mr. Classiq, AJ. I remember there was a time when I couldn't even give my name, or I was more embarrassed about giving my, don't give my government name to people because I was doing some things that maybe they shouldn't have my government name for. Now I'm more nervous about people looking my alias up and like, oh, he talk about that kind of stuff, Yeah, so it's really good to be here on this Tuesday night. We are going to have a beautiful show today. We're going to talk about what's in the name. We're just going to follow up a little bit on our conversation about, what's in the name? African-American, Black, African-American, all these different colored, people of color. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then we're going to follow up with some current things that are happening right now with Nipsey Hussle. We're going to also follow up with some of the conversation we had about Double Jeopardy and when we touched on the Cardi B scenario last week. And so, let's jump right into that. So what's in the name? We're talking about... who are we? What should we be called? What shouldn't we be called? What do we want to accept? And I was talking to Julius earlier on the way here, and I was trying to show him this clip, right, of there were a couple of people in Australia, and they're talking about some of the river that's been shortcut, and so it's not making it to some of the original inhabitants, or rather some of the aboriginals there. It's not making it to them anymore, and this water was obviously a big staple there. And then when they were talking about it, these couple of people that really looked, they looked Eurocentric. They looked pretty Caucasian to me, and they were like, as black folks, this, and this. And I was like... Whoa, now I wasn't way surprised because I watch a lot of Australian flicks, and so I kind of am aware that there's this culture of people that, but what I was asking him was like, well, imagine if they were here and they were saying that they were black people. And so there's so much, what do you guys think about that whole thing of like, how does that resonate with you? Like are they like, is it the one drop of black blood thing that's happening over there is why that's happening, which I suspect, or how would that make you feel if you saw that and from your perspective, if somebody was, just how would that feel? What do you think about that?
You are who you are. You black and white is an American perspective. We spoke about how I had a friend who went to Indonesia, and she said she was black and white, and everybody was like, but what's black, what's white? So it's kind of an American lens to say black, I'm white.
And for me, it's also division. For me, how I always saw it is it was always meant to be a division factor, meaning you need to be either black or white because I need to know how to treat you. So like back in the day, that's how it was used. And you are only these two things. And that's actually, it still happens today where for me, people always are like, you're not black enough or you're not white enough. So in my eyes, you're black. That's all you are. I don't care what you say to me, you're black. And so I'm going to treat you like that. So it's interesting that I just had this conversation on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. And this woman who started this company is, like trying to help our voices just be heard just as people, and whatever we so call ourselves or whatever we relate to. Okay, let's all talk about it. Let's all lift each other up. But she was talking about also is, well, if I don't match this criteria, then where do I stand? And that's based off of somebody else. Now, what about me? What if I decide to call myself that? To certain people, it's still not enough. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what you call yourself because I don't call you that. So I don't care what you have to say. So I feel like it's also the recipient of whoever you're talking to. Mm. Are they open? Are they open-hearted, open-minded, willing to learn, willing to say, oh, maybe I was taught wrong, or a different way of thinking that actually isn't healthy and is actually detrimental to humanity? So can you teach me about that? Because for me, I remember I was a little girl. My grandfather's black.
Right.
So for me, my grandfather is black. He is my family. I'm black. I am. But I didn't understand that he wasn't my blood grandfather. I didn't understand that until I grew up. I was maybe 12, and they were saying, no, but you're actually not related to him via blood, so you aren't black. And so I had a hard time with that because that's my granddaddy. Right. And he's Creole, and I'm proud to be family with him. So now I don't, so now he's not family to me. Okay, so now it's okay. Now I have to separate that because now you are not a part of this. You're not a part of that community. Mm. But when I go to reunions, everybody around me is black.
Right.
So it can be confusing to have this world around me say, you need to follow this criteria, which is what you were talking about, Julius, of it being a very United States thing of white and black, versus just let's figure out who do you call your, how do you represent yourself, or how do you want to be represented, or what is your community? Mm-hmm. Just tell me about yourself versus that.
I'm kind of, so whereas I do agree with that, I also feel like there's another side to that, though. So there's like so it is a United States thing, and that's where black started, right? In terms of that whole concept of what black is. But I think, or I know, the other part of that is like, so then there's black the people, but then there's black the culture, and so there's always been a group of people that could be, if you're a person of color, black people usually don't mind if you are behaving in a way that is indicative to our culture, right? It's something that is, if you will, it's black. You're acting black, so to speak. And I know that's a whole nother situation and circumstance, right? But when somebody says, like, if you're acting black and that kind of thing, and there's always been people who, if they're saying, even like the usage of the word nigga, it's certain races that if they use it, it doesn't feel the same as if, we don't want white people to say it. But a Samoan dude, or even like if you said it, when I'm looking at you, you're clearly a person of color. So if there's this feeling of like, okay, you know a little bit more about the struggle, we're not as offended because you know about the struggle. You a nigga to the police anyway, right? So if you look enough like us, you a nigga anyway. So you saying it don't. But then there's this other part, right, where so then there's like, okay, well then, like when we were last week when Julius was saying about Pan-Africanism and that being something, it's not something like a ethnic background or a race, it's what you be, right? Am I saying that right? Yep. And I love that. And then so there's part of me that's feeling like, okay, this black thing kind of can sit with that, right? Like there's this feeling that you get. So I'm seeing, we used to want to remember how much African was in our system. And then now I'm seeing Africans appear to be acting more like African Americans in their own countries and other races in general. on that wagon of what black is. And so that's kind of why I brought up they're calling themselves black over there, whether they're extremely fair skinned and look more European than you could imagine, but still have that little drop of black blood, right? And so it's just, I'm wondering how much of this is less to do with maybe a racial category and more to do with an experience.
I feel like that goes back. I think that the Australian in this moment that you're talking about, that's more of. It reminds me of what you were talking about, Julius. What he just brought up about it being. It's a feeling. It's within you. It is you. You are that. Versus labeling for color and knowing how to regard you. I think those are two very different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would like to see that video, because if she was saying it like as a culture, okay, black culture, but if she is coming from like a Pan-Africanist, she doesn't see that. She's just, that's who she is, just off the pure strength that she has that one drop. So it's no division in her mind. It's like, well, I'm born in Australia, some born in Jamaica, some born in Haiti, some born in Louisiana, some born in Britain, you know. So she's just seeing it, I don't know. But she could just be seen like, hey, I'm black.
Yeah.
And that was the context, was like the water's not coming to their area of Australia anymore, and she was like, they don't care about this because we're black people. So she was saying something like what we would be, it just. But then when you see the face of if you heard her saying it, you feel one way. But if you saw it, you'd be like, oh, she's black. She's confused. She's not black. You see a little bit of difference in her nose from that Aboriginal style of nose, right? Then you're like, okay, so it must be that. And so that's just what makes me wonder, like, how much of that. And then they didn't start, like, when did they start even calling themselves black, or anywhere else that they're calling themselves black? It had to have stemmed from here and from certain aspect of, because what we powered the people up and all of that. And then if somebody's practicing the culture, is it okay for them to then, like, what? Can they should more? He like, well, should they what? Should they say I'm black and I'm not?
I was like, say it.
Well, because I'm thinking like maybe not that far, but I am thinking like there is a part of me that's like can a Puerto Rican say they're black considering they have a certain percentage of African in their blood? Or is it or can they not? Because what if they have the same amount of African in their blood as we have, as African, or black African, or Pan-African, or Israel, or whatever right? What if they have the same amount? Then, can they say they're black? And then there's this other part of me that feels like, I don't mind other cultures loving our culture, but I be wanting cultures to give us the credit when when I see different cultures, whether it's breakdancing or patronizing hip hop in a positive aspect, I sometimes feel like it's being taken from us once again, even if it's from someone that I would maybe prefer to take it than who usually is the taker. But at the same time, it's like, okay, here we're being exploited again. But then it's like, well, okay, that's what they say. The biggest flattery is mimicking is the biggest. Imitation
is the biggest form of flattery.
Yeah. So I mean, where do we draw that line?
I think that goes back to when I learned I wasn't black. I had a moment where I said, okay, now I'm not black. I want to respect this culture because I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like to have that run through my body and have that being for me, because I'm not in my blood, you know?
How did you feel when you thought it was in your blood? Because you thought you were.
I am who I am. I am who I am.
Because that's what I thought. Interesting. Right. You thought you were black.
I did.
Right.
I thought I was black.
So I'm wondering, like, what does that feel to think you're black?
So that's what I was. I don't know.
Like Rachel.
I
Rachel mean, was the white lady who was like the head of NAACP. She thought she was black. Like,
did she?
No, she like had braids. She tanned her skin.
She wanted to be black?
And you don't mean thought like she wanted to be. You mean she thought she was like she thought she actually had it in her system. Like
no. She wanted to be black.
Okay, so that's different. She wanted to be black.
Like, brainwashed herself to be
that's
black.
different. That's
crazy. You know, and you would have to like look her up to know that she wasn't black because she,
Wow.
the way that she tanned her skin, like she did everything.
That's shit right
That's
there.
different. That's
Yeah,
different. That's
she has
different.
now she has a Netflix interview, a Netflix special. You know, she's on Netflix getting money off of
Crazy.
being black.
Crazy.
white women being black. You know,
That's
but
just disrespectful. That is
It's
so
disrespectful.
rude. Oh,
But-
Lord have mercy.
No.
this is America.
This is America. Oh,
That's it.
But did you see, okay, so my son sent me this clip. No, my nephew. He sent me this clip. And there's so it's talking about these realistic types of masks that look like black people.
Mm-hmm.
And one dude actually robbed a bank, and then he saw it, and he ended up getting caught. And he had one of these masks on, so it was hard for him to find at first because they didn't know it was a mask. They just said, a black dude robbed a thing.
Yeah.
It looked so, it looked so real that I would have been fooled.
Yeah.
I mean, in the daytime, if I would have saw him, I would have thought that's a strange-looking black dude. That's a strange-looking brother there. But I would have still thought he was black. So the guy that did the clip, he was trying to make the point of, how often are these masks being put on, and what else are they doing with these masks? And it became a very scary moment for me, thinking about how many people can just get, like, you could be in the Ku Klux Klan and the NRA, and then all of a sudden, which both of those usually go hand in hand, and then you just go somewhere with that damn mask on, and you kill my brother.
Crazy.
And then you could get on TV and with your whole clan of Ku Klux Kuckers and be like, you know what? We should just go watch some videos and we could put a price on which one, and you get more money if you kill this. Like, I can see it being a whole thing, and to some that might sound like, oh, well, come on now. But shit, we wouldn't have thought it was happening at all if we hadn't caught one. Right. Now that we caught one, it make me think it's 1,001 of them
But like
motherfathers.
To the opposite, you know, you have William O'Neill, you know, the cat who was an informant who caught Fred Hampton. And he didn't have a physical mask. He was an actual black guy, but he wasn't working for the people. You know, so much so that he infiltrated the Chicago chapter of Black Panthers, caught Fred Hampton slipping. They got him at 2 a.m. Cops pulled up, shot him up next to his, you know, his pregnant fiance. I think she was like 8 months at the time. So, you know, you have the mask that you physically put on, but then you have those who are black, literally, but they aren't brothers, you know. So how deep do you want to go? You know, are you know, because you have those informants, you have those cats who infiltrate. You have, I mean, Malcolm, he was killed by brothers, quote unquote. And were they brothers?
That's my point. Like, how we know that wasn't somebody white in a mask? No, it seemed far-fetched at
I
first,
saw it. No, I dig it, but
it could be somebody in a mask,
very well
especially
could.
at night and in a crowded and it's shots and all of that, and ain't nobody paying attention like they could. It could be.
I mean,
I feel like even like when you think about Nipsey Hussle and the support that he had for Dr. I might say this name wrong, Dr. Sebi. I sometimes say Sidibe and Sibi. Dr. Sid, no disrespect, rest in peace, one of our kings. But the respect he had for him, it makes me think like, hey, you know, when you're looking for who killed Pac and all these people, it might have been somebody white with one of them damn masks on that did it. And so, look, we're going to come right back. Once again, we're here at KCBZ Radio. That's KCBZradio.com. This is Situation and Circumstance, and you know how we do it.
Log on to KCBZradio.com and check the schedule for Situation and Circumstance Live, complete with music, live phone call access, and additional audio and programming. Anthony and TBT would love for you to be a part of the live broadcast and recording of Situation and Circumstance at KCBZradio.com.
Man, once again, it's on at Situations and Circumstances. That was Nipsey Hussle. He is he just was killed on the day before April 1st, April Fool's Day, and that's how I took it. I didn't know it was real. One thing, let me say first, is I thank God for another day. Every day above ground, I do want to praise God. It's a blessing. It's a blessing. Let's get straight to it. Nipsey was more than a rapper. He was more than a rapper, and I think it's a disservice to put Nipsey in the category of just a rapper. We have some people like who just stay in their lane. Nipsey did not do that. Allen Iverson was just a basketball player. You have some people who just do what they know. Rap was his vehicle to do much bigger things, and he definitely did so. He owns his own masters. Most people in music don't own their own masters.
Right.
And he owned his own masters. He was opened the first smart store ever. So when you see his logo on the back of his, you get a smart device and you put the camera up to it, and it has a video. It has a video. Once you put you hover your camera over it. That's the first ever. You know, he was teaching wealth. He was teaching health. He just did so much for his community. I'll put him in the same category. This is not to compare. I don't like comparing people. But he's what Bob Marley is to reggae. He's that big. He's what Tupac is to hip hop. He's what, y'all might kill me for this, he's what Dr. King and Malcolm X is to the 60s. He's really that big. He's what Marcus Garvey is to Pan-Africanism. He's that big.
What was the when you said where did the feeling come from that and then it may not have been to us specifically in the room with you, but y'all may kill me for this. Is there a feeling there that you think there's not enough credit being gave, or that people are seeing him in just like these lenses of just the stereotype and not the other parts? Or I just feel like there's something to saying something like, y'all might kill me for this, before you compare him to the people that follow that.
Well, see, and that's the thing, because that's it. Because I'm not comparing him to it, and then, I'm putting him in the same sentence, in the same category. And oftentimes we like to compare. Oh, Jay-Z, he's this, he's not Pac. Kobe's this, he's not MJ. We don't have to compare. I think when I put a Malcolm and a Martin and a Nipsey, I'm looking at what they did, not what they didn't do, thus the comparison. So when I see Nipsey, he was talking about tangible things that we can touch, things that we can do, and he did it. As much as I love Malcolm, I love Martin. For me, Nipsey, he did that many things because he spoke about it, but then he did it. And he's from Crenshaw. He's from Slauson, the same street that Bunchy Carter is from, who was the head of the Black Panthers in L.A. and was killed as well by gun violence. So he did that much, plus more. He died at 33. Again, I just think it's a disservice. I told my dad that. He was like, yeah, that is blasphemous, because right. Malcolm is my dad's guy. Like, he loves him, but to look at what he did and will do is just amazing. I mean, when Dr. King was killed, there were riots. The day after, there were riots. The day after Nipsey was killed, it was unity. Yeah. It was Bloods and Crips and Latino gangs uniting. There was the Rolling 60s and the 8 Trade Crips uniting, walking and marching. So for me, it's bigger than rap. He has a song called Rap Niggas. He's like, I'm nothing like these rap niggas. And, the first glance you hear, you're like, yeah, you are. You cussing, you sagging, you got tattoos. You're literally like these rap cats. But when you break it down, he's nothing like these rap cats who are doing it. Most cats in the game, they just do it for the paycheck. He's so progressive, and I think a lot of it had to do with his roots. He's Eritrean. His dad is Eritrean. His mom is Native American. Is native born African in here in the States. So I think a lot of that comes from that. I mean, when you love yourself, you tend to love people who look like you. So a lot of times people are like, well, when did you become woke, quote unquote? I love myself so much. So when I see fellow black people, I'm like, well, if I love me, I must love them. If I think I'm motivational, they got to be motivational. If I think I'm hardworking, they are hardworking people. So Nipsey, he loved his people so much, and his purpose was to motivate. I mean, his song, Hustle and Motivate, that dedication, that victory lap, running the race, the marathon continues, that. So everything that he spoke about was to motivate, was hard work, was to be patient, was to be persistent, was to not stop. I mean, the clip we just played, he said the only thing that separated me was I didn't quit.
And it appears that he was one of the few that was deciding to do it from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And so, rappers, they were all supposed to be like these, I don't know, maybe not all of them, but there was a level of profit, being a prophet that rappers could actually achieve. Mm-hmm. And they were supposed to, everybody's story was, I'm doing what I'm doing to get out of the gang, get out the street so that I can help my community. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people, not all, because of course the ones that are helping aren't getting not getting the space to show that. But nevertheless, there are quite a number that you escaped the hood, then you didn't come back and do anything from the hood. Right. And I really honor the fact that he wanted to stay inside of the community that he was trying to help, which is very dangerous, very brave. Because it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. Anything you allow yourself to continue to do in the face of danger, obviously that's brave. Mm-hmm. And I like that you brought up Tupac and some of the others, because I didn't listen to Nipsey's music. I've heard some of the songs and everything, and certainly I saw that he had bars and that there was these other parts. I knew a little bit more about some of the things that he did for the community and what he was trying to do for the community, which were things that I found impressive. But when he passed, not only from when we were here last week did I see the pain inside of you, but then my sons called me, and I'm looking at the age bracket, right? So the people that called me were between a certain age. Mm-hmm. I didn't have one person call me over the age of maybe 33, 34, or somewhere around then. Mm-hmm. Everybody that called, everyone I saw talking about it was in their 20s, and then maybe up, a few upwards of the early 30s. Mm-hmm. And what it made me feel like is here, once again, we have an activist that is young and using that energy. Like Pac always said, they want us to get old. Mm-hmm. And like myself, I'm a little older, and so I'm still an activist. But I'm not as likely to go out there and run to a soapbox as quick as I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. Right? Whereas here, once again, we had a strong individual exercising his power and his strength with his people. Yeah. And he was really young. Mm-hmm. What do you think about, sometimes we have heroes that when they've done something in the past, then it becomes about that past. And I know we're going to speak on this a little bit later, but I'm just curious, just with him in particular, when we think about some of the things that he has done in his past, without even having to mention those things, what do those things change anything about who he is, and how do we determine which part of his character is okay based off of things that he created that was helpful and things that may have been part of the systematic destruction of us? How do you feel about, or what would you say to that?
Well, his past made him. We in today's world, we wouldn't let Malcolm be Malcolm. He's Detroit Red. This guy was a pimp. This guy slang drugs. He did everything. Mm-hmm. He was Detroit. He was a Detroit Red, but he became Malcolm X. So we're not judging him off his past. His past made him. He was a slick talker. That made him great in front of politicians. That made him great in front of the UN. Nip, he banged the Rolling 60s, but so he was trying to change from within. So that one of his nicknames is Neighborhood Nip. So he was good with the Bloods. He was good with the Crips. He was good with the Latinos. He was good all around. So he used that to unite. You have all other cats who won't use names, but you have other, rappers who use the gang life to profit. And it killed them. They didn't really use it for their benefit. They didn't use it for others' benefit. They used it for clout. They used it to sell. And to each his own, but Nip did the opposite. So he'll say, I'm from West Side, the C's, they know what's up. But he spoke, it's another interview, that he said, when I realized that I had to change it, I had to switch it, because I'm talking about what you just said. I'm talking about killing my own. Mm-hmm. He literally said that in the interview. I'm talking about it. So if you listen to his most current work, he still go rep his tribe, as we say I'm black, as Jay-Z say I'm from Brooklyn. You know, as other folks say, I'm from Australia. That's your tribe. You belong to somebody. So he still go rep where he's from. Mm-hmm. But he didn't say, I'm about to shoot you when I see you, as he did used to. He used to say, so he's not going to say, I'm about to jump you. He's not going to say it's us versus y'all. So if you listen to his most current work, total shift. You know, when he was wilding out, he was wilding out. As we all were in different, realms, we did our things. But I think his past made him who he is and why he is celebrated. Such as a Bunchy Carter. Bunchy's from Slauson. And no one's bringing up, how wild Bunchy was. I mean, Huey P. Newton was a thug. Like, literally, he was a thug, but he created the Black Panther Party.
So and also all of those around that same age.
Right.
Yeah, that ain't by accident.
Right. No, it's not. So, he just didn't quit, which is motivational. It's sad, but it's inspiring to see somebody who did not quit and did the things that he did for the betterment of his community. For people, it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint for musicians, for hustlers, for motivational speakers, for activists, for fighters, for organizers. It's inspiration. So it's sad, I'm heartbroken, but like Nipsey would say, the marathon continues. So.
And then at the funeral, they I heard, I didn't actually see this, but I heard some people talking about, like, there were some other things that happened that weren't so kosher, or maybe it happened before the funeral or something like that.
Regarding?
Did someone, were they, I was told that, this is what I was told, that there were some, either a police or something related to a police officer or some police officers that were trying to get other individuals to start something at it so that it could derail what was actually happening. And I don't know if you heard anything like that. It didn't surprise me when I heard it. But because I've seen that before.
Yeah, right.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because this whole time I'm listening to you and like I can see how you feel about him as you speak. And so I'm thinking about how interesting it is that his intentions and his whys and how he is on this platform at such a young age, people want to see that fail because they can see what can happen and what can transpire from this. And so how you were saying, Anthony, AJ, how you didn't hear from anybody over the age of about 33 or older, and thinking about how a lot of people just don't want to get this out there. They don't want more people to hear about this. They don't want people to have this wide range of people knowing about what he's saying, what he's doing, who he is, because the more people know about it, the more people will get under that. Like Malcolm X, he started to grow and grow and grow and grow, and then he got to grow older, and now a lot more people know about him. So now what about Nipsey? So seeing that like line for him, and who knows, what would have happened, but knowing like that there's people behind that you were just talking about, cops trying to make things happen because they don't want things to be good. Yeah. Some people just don't want things to be good.
Or they want it good for them.
Right. And they don't even know what good for them looks like, though. So they think that this is what it looks like to be good for us, but they just don't know any other way because that's what they were taught too. And so it's interesting to think about who he was, Nipsey, and think about how he's still affecting. I love that you said that, and what he's continuing to do. I love that you said that because it's true.
I think that's a good point to go into. It was a really beautiful service. Anybody who saw it, it was obviously it was star-studded, and you could tell there was a lot of genuality in the things people said, as opposed to people just go in so they could say that they were there. And so I want to get into this clip of, it's kind of a clip. Technically it's a clip. But of Jhené Aiko. Jhené Aiko. She sung at his funeral or at his service. If you haven't done yourself the service of going out and finding out more about one of our fallen heroes, please do that. find out why he's being talked about. If you're over 34 plus or something like that, and you really don't know much about him because you didn't listen, then I'd advise you to check him out and find out why he's had such the impact. As opposed to don't let the news come to you. Go ahead and find it out for yourself so you get the right information. Actually, you have a blog they can go to, right, to know a little bit more about that.
You define Julius, definejulius.com. That's the name of my blog.
So you can go there and it's a little bit more information, or you a little bit more in depth in some of the parts that we didn't get to discuss today in that side, that blog. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Let's do it.
And so here's Janae Aiko singing a song dedication at Nipsey Hussle's funeral. Rest in peace, brother. Rest in power.
Log on to kcbzradio.com and check the schedule for Situation and Circumstance Live, complete with music, live phone call access, and additional audio and programming. Anthony and TBT would love for you to be a part of the live broadcast and recording of Situation and Circumstance at kcbzradio.com.
Once again, you're here at KCBZ Radio. That's kcbzradio.com. And this is Situation and Circumstances. And, of course, we're here with TBT, the best team. That's Jam, Julius, Anthony, and Mariah. Anthony's a.k.a. Mr. Classiq. That's a lot to say. You got to remember it, but you got to retrospect it. So we, once again, rest in peace to our fallen brother, Nipsey. And we were talking a little bit about this when we were discussing Nipsey, just a little bit about how what's really strange happening right now. I mean, I'm sure it's been happening, but what's really strange is how we decide certain things in a person's past is okay, and they're still a hero, and in others it happens in their past and it's not okay. And I'm just finding a hard time. I'm having a hard time dealing with that. And so before I came here today, for instance, I was talking to my cousin and my daughter-in-law, and we were all kind of talking about the whole Cardi B thing. And I brought it up, and then I just stepped back, right, because I wanted to hear both of them have their conversation about it, particularly because I hadn't had the opportunity to see what two women thought about their fellow sister, right, and the comments she made. And I'm of course talking about what we discussed a little bit last week with her saying that she's drugged men and she's drugged them and robbed them and drugged them and freaked them and and so just looking at I was looking at that and it was interesting. They actually got into this kind of not heated argument, but they got in an argument about it because one was saying, how dare she do all of that, she has all of these young girls looking up to her, and then she's saying all of this stuff. And then the other my other cousin or my cousin, her perspective was like, well, men have been saying all these things and doing all these things forever, and then now she's doing it, and then now people want to have, in her words, I think she said something like they panties in a bunch. And so then for me, I'm thinking, like, I'm hearing them both go back and forth, and I was searching for something. I'm waiting on somebody to say, well, she was wrong. Right. If it was, and if a man would have done it, it would have been this, or it would have been that, or it could have been this and could have been that. But then I found myself like, there's this space of where, like, if black people, okay, so you have somebody who does something. You have Catholic priests. They raped all those boys, and hundreds of boys were raped. They came forth and all of that, and it seems like they got away with it. Maybe they got a little bit of shunning here and whatever else, but they're not in jail, right? And so then you look at somebody like Bill Cosby, and then I hate to. I kind of hate to put them in the same category, but then you have like R. Kelly, right? And so then there's a situation where it's like, okay, well, if you say, well, they shouldn't be, you're not going after all these white men who did all these things, so then we're putting our people in jail. Then there's the other part of me that's like, yeah, but if you're wrong, you're wrong. It shouldn't matter what color you are. If you're wrong, you're wrong. But It shouldn't, but it does.
It does.
So then there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, hell, if Bill Cosby raped all them people, or whoever did this or did that, or whatever the case, they should serve some time or get the fingernails pulled off or whatever the hell they deserve for that stuff. But I just feel like, but then you're not. I don't know how. There's something going on there that's just not sitting with me right. And so there's part of me that feels like, Cardi B, if you will say that you will do these things, then, or that you've done these things, then you just admitted this stuff. I feel like she should be put under the same scrutiny.
I said that last week. Shoot.
Right?
I said the same thing last week.
But then there's, so thank you. And so then what I felt like after that was like, okay, but there's also this part of me, and it's going to be interesting to see what both of you say, considering you're close in age, and that's quite a bit younger than me. There's this part of me that's like, when you make mistakes in your youthful exuberance, how much of that should be able to be used to categorize you 10 years after that? So, like, you don't think the same now as you did 7 to 10 years ago. You're going to develop between 7 and 10 years from now. And so, where do we? I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think two things. Well, first thing is, R. Kelly is still doing these things, right? Whereas Cardi B, that is in her past. So those are already two differences if we're going to compare the two.
Yeah.
And second thing is, it's talking to her and seeing however you're going to. There's a thing in law, if you don't have the evidence, if it's past due, if it's so many years, I think it's 10 years past whatever the event was, then you can no longer go back to it. So there's all these rules. So if that's the case, then that's the case with that. I don't know how long it's been. And then it's also the word forgiveness, too, for certain things, like moving forward and learning from that. Forgiving herself and being like, this is, and owning up to it, this is what I did, and I'm not proud of it, and I'm not saying it because I'm proud of what I did, and I'm happy that I did that. I'm saying that because this is where I came from, and this is what I did, and I want to show you that you can move forward. You can do that, and that goes back to what, like, Nipsey was doing. He's like, he used to say these things. He's no longer saying these things because he's moving and progressing and moving forward. Because he's growing.
But did she admit it, or did it come up? Which is two different things.
Right. And so,
if she came forward and she was doing the whole,
if she did,
I'm doing the whole, hey, I did this and this. But I'm under the impression, from what
it was accusing her of this, and so she had to back herself up, kind of thing.
That's what it feels.
That's different,
right?
And that's where it comes in for me. I feel like, yes, you need to be taught. You cannot do these things, and if this is what you. Here's the question then, too, is she going to come out on the stage and be like, yo, this is what I did back in the day. I just want to let everyone know. At what point is she supposed to say that? Meaning, is she trying to hide it, or was she trying to hide it the whole time? Or was she being transparent and nobody asked the questions? Or what was the case? I think that's the thing, is what was the case behind her never coming out saying that? Because I don't know anybody that just comes out saying all the wrongdoings even a year or 5 years into a friendship or relationship until they're being asked about it or until the topic arises. And so I'm curious as to why she never said it or why it never came up, or were they trying to hide that under the rug?
Because it probably didn't matter to nobody, including her. Nobody cared. They only care now because she's rich. Mm-hmm. That's what I think. Nobody cared. Mm-hmm. And so then my cousin said this. She said, well, you got all these men that's rapping and they've been saying all these things all this time. I said, yeah, but that's in their music. And she said, well, what's the difference? And I'm like, well, somebody saying something in an interview is different than something in their music, because the music can either be true or they could be actually purposely putting fiction out there. Mm-hmm. So it's not an admittance of guilt, because I say if in my song I say I remember I had to kill a bunch of dudes for doing this or doing that, and I say that Cube ain't killed nobody, but he talked about plenty of murder, but he ain't killed nobody. Mm-hmm. So allegedly, I don't think Cube killed, but you see what I'm saying? Right. So it's just like, it just seems to me, it seems to go back to, honestly, so it seems to go back to Double Jeopardy.
Right.
It feels like I guess for me, I would not like to see Cardi go to jail for it. I wouldn't have. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure because I wasn't at none of those spaces and places when Bill Cosby was going through his thing. But I feel like part of me feels like I wouldn't like her to see her go to jail for it, but I'd like to see her put under scrutiny so we can continue to unravel this what we're gonna do. Because if we're gonna keep sending people and doing stuff to people that have a past, then should nobody be able to say words I could say?
No.
Oh well then.
Keep going.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just feel like, and part of this is me protecting myself because I've always been transparent. But I know that all the things that I have done, still do, or excuse me, let's change that. Things that I have done haven't been perfect, but I also know that the things that I do now, I've elevated and all these things. But then I'm always looking at like part of me was going to take down old videos that of music I've done because I'm talking about different. I'm a little misogynistic in it. I'm promoting things that people may not feel are. But I've never done music where I've only been promoting one thing and not the other. It's like, okay, I'm gonna sell this big butt song, so you'll find. So maybe if you look at you hear the big butt song, maybe you'll get to this positive song. Yeah. But if somebody goes back in my past, which they will, because we're gonna do our thing, and they're gonna trying to check. They're gonna try to fact check us and background check us, and then they're gonna find out some things. Then all of a sudden, it's gonna be everything. All the 100,000 kids I've saved in my travels and all of this or that aren't gonna mean anything. It's gonna be like, well, in that one song you had this song called something that rhymed with O's. Right? And it says, O's, the O's, they love me. He just called women O's. Right? So now all of a sudden, well, if I did that, so then that means that all these people that I saved, it's like, how do you determine who's deciding which part of your past is relevant to your now?
Oh, Lord.
And then we did that with the one, I don't remember his name, but there's one guy that used to be in the Ku Klux Klan, and then he changed his life and wanted to start doing some other stuff, but it was like, yeah, but once a nigga hater, always a nigga hater. Yeah.
I feel like that's what's so hard about, that's what's so difficult is, and I brought up that word forgiveness, is because some people really do change, and I feel like that's what's so beautiful about people is we have the capacity to grow and to change constantly, and so it's unfair to say that anyone should be perfect because that's what that's saying. To me, that's what that's saying is you got to be perfect. Well, then in that case, we all need to go to jail then because we all have a past. We all did something. So that's unfair to say that too. So that's why I think it's a case by case basis. And that's why I brought up those different situations and circumstances because it depends on what the circumstances and her why didn't these things come out before? What was it that this was never elevated to a situation where it is now? Because so many people have a past. And does that say that we haven't grown into who we are today? No, that is a part of my story. And that is a huge component of why I am the way I am today. So I'm not happy for some of those things, but I'm grateful that I have grown from that because now that is a part of my story and I can connect with people on that in ways that somebody else cannot. And so I'm not going to be mad at that. I'm going to say, yes, I did that and this. Right.
Yeah. I like what you just said. Yeah, I did it. Now what? But unfortunately, the now what happens in a different way. The more astute or the more profitable your name becomes, then there's more people who are more interested in every little thing you did, and they're going to use whatever part they can. It's almost like you need to come out and say, I did all of this. Yep. But then it's like, some of that ain't your business. Right. But then people feel like if they're paying for your success, so if you're an entertainer or you're an athlete or certain one, if we're paying for your success, oh, you got to tell me all your business because I'm paying for your success.
You become a puppet.
And when you don't do that, then people try to shun you like Marshawn Lynch, right? When you don't want to play that game with them. And so, which is actually a good person to mention that isn't giving them the benefit of, he's not giving that to them, and he's showing that I don't have to give you all that, I can still do this. But that's far and in between, or at least it feels like it's very far and in between.
I thought of that word star. There's a reason why they call people that are in the limelight a star, because what you're doing is they're no longer human. What you've done is you've created them up here on this pedestal so far away from where a human is that they are now that. And so in those people's minds, that's why it makes sense why they do what they do, but it doesn't make it okay.
Well, so let's do this. Maybe there's some examples of that, right? So let's do this. We're going to go into this song. Once again, you're here at KCBZradio.com, Situation and Circumstances. And, of course, I'm here with TBT, the best team. And we're going to get into, Rihanna and featuring Drake, What's My Name?
Log on to KCBZradio.com and check the schedule for Situation and Circumstance Live, complete with music, live phone call access, and additional audio and programming. Anthony and TBT would love for you to be a part of the live broadcast and recording of Situation and Circumstance at KCBZradio.com.
All right. Once again, it's Mariah here with Situation and Circumstances on KCBZradio.com. We were just talking about the word star and how people in the limelight are called stars for some, and how that it puts a lot of pressure. And that word star, if you think about that, it's so far away from us as humans. There's no way we could even touch a star with our physical hands while we're here on Earth. So now a star is naturally on a pedestal, untouchable, unreachable. So then if I think about that word star for a human being and now how people react to a star, they forget that that is a human being. That is not a star. That is just a human being that happens to be doing whatever they're doing, which is dope.
Right.
And so instead of seeing it as that, when you were talking about, AJ, about the two women that were going back and forth about Cardi B, and one of them said, but she's such a, she's someone for little girls to look up to. Yes, but that's not her job to make sure that she's a certain way in order for little girls to be able to look up to her. If they so choose to look up to her, dope. Because of her life, they choose that, dope, cool. But she shouldn't have to feel like she's trapped in this armor of, I have to be a certain way and I can't be me fully because I'm scared either way I'm going to tiptoe on glass because I'm not okay for you. We're not going to be okay for everybody. And that's not my problem. You get to choose if you want to be okay with me. If you do, cool. Thank you. Thanks. I feel it. Thank you for digging on me. I thank you for that. I'm just me being me. I shouldn't have to try and be perfect to adjust to everybody's liking because that's not going to happen either. So it's an impossible task to ever say that one person can be a motivation for every single person in the entire world because it's untrue. And so it goes back to this, what we were talking about with Cardi B of, yeah, she's imperfect. She's imperfect. But guess what? So am I. So is everybody in this room. So is everybody listening. So is everybody that has something to say about her. So I think it's more of how is she approaching it? How is she approaching this situation? That's what it comes down to for me. And what it also comes down to is the actual situations themselves. I mean, are they still going? No. So what are we talking about? And I think it's talking about what you said is the past. We each have a past. So are we going to keep bringing it up every time? Are we going to be done with it? When are we going to forgive and grow forward? Because we can never grow forward if we don't look at what happened in the past and face it, firstly, acknowledge it, sorry, apologize to myself and to others, forgive ourselves, and then move forward. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going in these circles and we're never going to move forward. What are we doing any of this for anyways, if that's the case?
Well, then I feel like this. I wonder then if so. Okay, let's switch from Cardi for just a sec. We can get back on Cardi. Some people listening like, I like to get on Cardi. And so when we think about R. Kelly, right? And so, okay, so then I'm thinking about this. Now, again, I say, hey, you pissing on little girls and, hey, maybe peel your fingernails out, or I don't know where I'm on this fingernail pulling tip, but just stick pins under, whatever. Just some painful stuff, fill your penis with bleach. I don't know. But on the other hand, I feel like this. I feel like if it had been someone white, then here's what they're going to say. They're going to say, well, you have to look at that he was abused as a kid and all these other things. But I don't feel like those things are looked at. So it goes back to it's not looked at that like that with us.
It's not.
And so, like, the only reason they haven't drug Martin Luther King through the mud for some of his infidelity.
We going there, huh?
I'm not going to go all the way there because I don't even want to, because it leaves a sour taste in my mouth, not from what he did, but from what other people, it's simple as this. I feel like the only reason they don't drag his name through the mud is because he stood for everyone. And the only reason they didn't drag Malcolm X through the mud is because he admitted everything.
Right.
He started with with this other, so they didn't do it. But I feel like it's still this inequity. It's still this double jeopardy, not just with women and men and that kind of thing, but just even with that whole black and white thing. I feel like I don't feel like he should be free.
Who?
R. Kelly.
R. Kelly.
Okay.
But I also don't. Thanks for making me clarify there. But I also don't feel like. I don't know. I feel like there's a bigger conversation that needs to happen.
It is.
And it needs to happen now while some of the people are in the light that they're in. I think put more pressure on Weinstein, or whatever, whatever that guy is. Put more pressure on him, put him back in a bigger light, put those Catholic priests in a bigger light, and then have all of these rapists or murderers, have them all in the light, and then we can talk about it in a different way. But without being able to talk about it that way, I'm not saying protect people who are, like you said, R. Kelly, if he's still doing it, then I'm not saying protect him, but I'm saying use that to launch something bigger that is going to impact more. Like, we're just impacting us more.
Right.
We're not impacting, we're impacting more people of color by putting them under a microscope because of some things that they've done, and some deserve that more than others, but all of them are getting treated on the same slate. And it's not equating to me. It's just not fair.
It's not, but that's...
And I don't want to say it's the world we live in.
No, it's the world we decide to live in. I mean, we do this every day, so like for me, I don't believe in jail. I don't believe in prison, but that's a whole nother conversation. But we butcher R. Kelly, Harvey, Chris Brown. But man, we got to go, like you said, all of them. So like for Cardi, I believe we live in a generation in which we allow women to do certain things. We give certain passes to women for their behavior, for certain attitudes, for their wrongdoings in the past. But when it comes to men in this particular generation, I can't speak for, 90s, 80s, 70s. The generation that I live in, I've noticed so many things allowed, or, well, she was drugged, or, well, she had to hustle, or, well, give you an example. On First Friday, I went to, it was an art gallery out in Oakland. Went with the homie Hannock, and it was just 3 black people, okay? We're in Oakland. That already is kind of like a Jordan Peele movie, right?
Wasn't like that in 94.
It wasn't.
What I'm telling you, it wasn't like that in 94.
It was this chick, she's white. So she's a white person, and it's a woman. Okay. She comes up to me. I'm looking at some art. I accidentally glance at her. She's like... Accident? No, accident. Right. I was looking at art.
Accidentally.
No, brother. So she comes up to me, and she says, hey, why are you here? I said, I'm just looking at art, She's like, let's get out of here. I'm like, nah, it's not that type of party. She's like, come on, let's go. She's just pushing issues, like maybe 10 seconds go by. So it's really quick, but she's just very pushy. I'm like, nah, fall back. She leaves, comes back maybe 2-3 minutes later, right? She's like, hey, let's go. She gets like 5 inches away from my face, right? And I'm like, kill it. She grabs my private
Hair? Wow.
No. And, you know, she did her and bounced.
Wow.
Right? I told my boy we bounced. I told a couple of women, they were like, well, she was drugged. She was. You could see her, it was, I mean, you see her green eyes, but barely. Her eyes looked like a marble. It was just black. So she was on something. But when I told that story to a couple of women, they were like, well, she was drugged. You know, or she was on drugs. There's no telling what she would have done. And sober, you know, maybe she was just feeling you. Maybe she just wanted to have a good night. Now, I told her to fall back a couple of times. She said, let's keep doing it. She left, came back, got this close to my face.
Right.
That's 2. 3, she grabbed
Your C and B.
yes. You know, we got. Okay. So you might not know about that as a New Jack City. You know. But anyway, I'm talking about CMB. You know, the CMB boys. Wow. What?
You didn't say you couldn't say. Can we not?
Cool. You know what I'm saying?
I thought
I was
neither
good
one was
into
a
that.
cuss word. Oh.
Wow. So I say that all to say, people were looking for a reason to forgive her. And I'm all for forgiveness. All for it. She didn't want to be forgiven. Right? She was a white woman. She's a white, and then she's a woman. And we live in this time, when we always lived in a time in this country and in the world where white people could get away with things. But now we live in this country in which women can do certain things to certain people, and it's all good. Or we look for excuses as to why she did this. Whereas if I did anything remotely close, you'd be like, bro, you should have fell back. You know, hell, even if I would have went with her to the car and she was to yell rape,
Yep.
and then it would be like, bro, Jill, you knew what was going to happen. You knew you shouldn't have put yourself in that situation. So now I'm automatically the person that's like, bro, why did you do it? Not why did she do all the things she did? Why did you play into the things that she was doing? You know, so when it comes to Cardi B, nah, definitely forgive. I'm huge on forgiveness. But if she doesn't want to be forgiven, if she's denying it, or if she's like, yeah, I'm sorry, ha, 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 that's out.
Right.
You know, like, I don't know if y'all remember when Chris Brown, he performed Man in the Mirror at the BET Awards, like in 09.
I remember that.
And he got like 4 words out. He just started weeping and everybody helped him.
I remember.
You know, I'm not saying that alone is the reason why we should forgive him, but it's the acts you do after.
Exactly.
You know, so like a Malcolm, if or a Nipsey, if you do the things in the past, but you're working on to not erase the past, but you're working to paint over that in a good light, bet. But if you do what you did in the past, such as like you say, you used to rap, you know, certain things, you have to do something now so I can talk about that. So I won't have to talk about that. You know, like Malcolm did so many things so we didn't have to talk about him dealing drugs. Martin did so many things so we didn't have to talk about that. Cardi is like, maybe it's still new. I mean, it's like a month new, you know, but if no one is doing, you brought up R. Kelly, he's still doing these things. So why should we forgive him if he's still doing it?
Yep.
You know, so you have to do actions in order to not forgive, you know, but to fully wrap your mind around like, okay, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe that was out of pocket. Maybe he was just young. But you can't just like hash it off to like, hey, they're young. Or hey, this is the generation we live in. Or hey, that's what he has to do to make money. You can't.
Make excuses.
Make it, yeah. Because I mean.
Well, and we can see it quicker with her too. Because those other people, if it was Malcolm or Martin, any of those, they also weren't in a situation where their transgressions would have been so
vile.
Well, it wasn't available to be put everywhere immediately like that. So, like, in other words,
I got you.
Right?
I
So, Cardi B,
True.
It might have took a lot more years for
True.
us to get to that point.
True.
But now, thanks to
Right.
Social media
technology and
everything.
everything, it's like, boom, there it is right there. She did it. And so she hasn't actually had the time to grow past what she just did. So, because that wasn't
I
that
got you.
long ago. I would hope it wasn't that long ago, because her age would have mattered at this point, depending on. Sounds like she may not even been an adult then. when she's
I think it
talking
was at the
about-
very beginning of her career. Very beginning.
Like she might have been 18, 19.
And so so that's why I'm thinking is it depends on how they feel behind that. R. Kelly is absolutely not apologetic at all. So therefore, yes, I want some action taken. Cardi B, same thing. If you're not apologetic about what's going on and you want to continue to move forward and you're not doing those things anymore, it's all circumstantial. It depends on all of these different elements. And just like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr., they're moving forward. They're not living that life. They're not trying to live that life. That's different. If you're trying to live this life still, that's another story.
Most certainly. I'll say this. We are, if we're going to base being a hero off of perfection, then we won't have heroes. Because as we say, I mean, where are all these flawless heroes? You know, please send all these flawless heroes a bag of stones, you know, so they can cast them, right?
But before you continue, that's what makes you a hero. You know, the opposite. You know, like a Malcolm, we saw what he did. That's what makes him so unstar-like, right? The reason why Dr. King is like, oh, what? Dr. King did this? Because he was like, no, Dr. King can't do this. He's this. He's a reverend. We put him on that star level. You know, like Nip. He's tatty. Like, you see it in him. That's what makes him like so much achievable. Like, well, if Nip can do it, I can do it. You know, like if Malcolm could do all that stuff and say he did it, but move on, bet. But the only reason we know about Dr. King is because the FBI was like, hey, I'm gonna put this in the press. So we put Dr. King like he's perfect. So to me, what makes somebody a hero is like they accept what they did. Everybody know what they did, but I'm being a better person. Whereas if the feds never put that stuff out, will we ever know about Dr. King?
But then let's switch it this way. If Martin or Malcolm was in this time, Malcolm might not have got to be Malcolm because they would have been talking about him. He was a pimp,
right?
Which means he slapped some O's without the H. O's. Which mean, but right?
Yeah.
It means he slapped some people and he did the things that pimps do. Yeah. And so that would have been painted a lot differently, and it would have been exploited, right?
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not taking from it, but it would have been exploited if we had it right now, where there's information and technology, the ability to put a face on it and do all of the different stuff we would have got to do. Would they have been able to make it to get to be who we know them as if they were in these times? And then if he started pimping and stuff first, and he went to jail, then he got out, and now he got out in 2017, and now
he's reformed.
Right, and now he's reformed, and he's trying to do these other things. I just don't know he would have got to be who he was.
But I mean, Martin, that stuff came out when he was alive. You know, the feds was like, if you don't kill that noise, we're going to release this, which they did in subtle ways.
Yes.
I mean, that's how we know about it. You know, so I think certain things like that did come out. But again, we put him on the star. We didn't want to believe it because it was Martin Luther King Jr. So we're talking about it, 40 years later, 50 years later. But that stuff about Dr. King came out then when he was alive. I mean, the autobiography of X, that was being written when he was alive, right? He didn't see it come out because, he was murdered. But that stuff, he gave that information up when he was alive. So it was intended for him to be alive when that book came out, right?
Right.
So if he was to be alive, I still think he would have been that same dude because he was in the midst of it. You right? Like he was open about it while Alex Haley was writing that. If that makes
it does.
If I'm
it does.
tying that in.
Well, as always, it's been great talking about everything that we have discussed, and it looks like we have a lot more to talk about a little bit later. It sounds like if you live in Challenge or you were born in Challenge, then it's almost like there's an impossibility for you to be a hero unless we look at it the way you did, which is a beautiful way to look at it, and that is overcoming the obstacles that are in your path. Right there is what potentially makes you a great hero. Being able to speak to it, being able to own those mistakes, and show that you have that they're powerful mistakes because you've grown from them. And so once again, we're here at KCBZ, Situation and Circumstances. We're going to see you guys next Tuesday. Of course, I'm here with TBT, the best team. Thank you, Mariah and Julius. I am Mr. Classiq, a.k.a. AJ, a.k.a. Anthony. All three of those. Look them up if you want to. I ain't scared of y'all. Owls. Hey, go ahead and play that outro for us. We'll see you next time. Everybody tell the people what you think.
Man, most kings get their heads cut off.
And just want to make sure that we don't forget the memory of Nipsey and how he overcame all that he overcame. And if you don't know, go check it out, learn, grow, and let's not let this be a moment in time where we just forget about it and let it be a fad, because it's not a fad. This is something real, and let his memory and life live on. Love to him and his family.
Situation and circumstance. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. Can we see each other with only a glance? Situations and circumstances. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. How can we see each other with only a glance?
Cake mix and race mixes, matrix, kill the witches, 3 digits, made of 6s, KKK or white privilege, old spirits, blood riches, real hatred, fake forgiveness, skinny image, fat problems, I don't really know how we solve them, gods made us, kings gave us, to enslave us, castaways on railways, underground dark web pages, Marvel heroes, connect the zeros, connect the pharaohs, bone marrow, Egyptian princes, dark and ancient, preserve the patience, black and Haitian, white and Asian, British coaches, eat crustaceans, ocean roaches, Illuminati, inject the bodies, GMOs, drug hobbies, Aboriginal, Pan-African, old biblical, reincarnation, hip-hop playlists, vocal ranges, sexist wages, sex changes, the game of life, bullets fly, ruin nights, players clueless, kids' rights, humans fight, nature loses, hard of hearing, dolomite, Darwinism, Garvanite, hates a virus, terabytes, hard to live with, parasites, come on!
Situation and circumstance. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. Can we see each other with only a glance? Situations and circumstances. Fight for wisdom, not ignorance. Trying to avoid it is not a lonely dance. How can we see each other with only a glance?
Some of us robotic, programmed to follow. Some of us have logic and we wide awoke. Some of us don't got it and we learning slow. Some of us love God as part of having soul. Some of us robotic.